Hello Synthetics, welcome to Fragrance Therapy. Now, Xerjoff Naxos is one of those fragrances that's been around for 10 years and in my opinion is a modern masterpiece. Recently it's had this resurgence in popularity and that's led to a bunch of fragrance houses releasing their own interpretations. I'll go over the original and then the three latest clones and I'll rank them from my least to most favorite. With all that out of the way, let's jump in. Like I said, the original Naxos is a classic at this point. It blends these fresh aromatics with warm sweetness and this smooth tobacco. It's an Oriental fougere with a wonderful honey, tobacco, vanilla core, and it perfectly balances freshness and warmth. So the original Naxos opens with this bright, crisp, and slightly candied blend of citruses with bergamot and lemon, but it also adds aromatics with this clean and fresh lavender. Then the stars of the show really come out. This rich and smooth honey that's blended with warm cinnamon. As it dries, you get this creamy base with vanilla and tonka bean, and then you get this distinctive yet gentle tobacco note with tobacco leaf. Now, I know some folks get scared when they hear tobacco, but trust me, tobacco is also hit or miss for me. But the tobacco in here isn't this harsh, overly smoky tobacco. It's almost sweet and it really blends well with the gourmand notes. Now, the performance for the OG is also exceptional. You get like 8 to 9 hours on skin, lasts for days on clothes, strong projection for the first 2 hours. It is best for colder weather, I'm talking about fall and winter, but works perfectly for special occasions. I also think that the aromatic freshness that I mentioned allows it to work for cooler spring days, but not when it's too hot. It can be cloying. Look, Naxos is my favorite Xerjoff fragrance. It slightly edges out Herba Pura, and I know Herba Pura gets a lot of hate, but I actually love it. This one is so good, I am planning to get a full bottle soon. It's high quality and amazingly blended. It rides that fine line between niche yet incredibly wearable. No doubt this is a sweet fragrance, but with sweeter fragrances being like all the rage nowadays, it's not surprising that this DNA has really taken off even 10 years after it originally came out. And it's not just all sweetness here for people who don't like just strictly sweet fragrances. It definitely adds those darker notes that gives it some really nice depth. So now to the inspired by fragrances. I currently have 3 of the most popular takes on the Naxos DNA. I'm going to start with my least favorite and work my way to the most favorite. I will say this, it's kind of ridiculous how close all these get for their price points. It comes down to a matter of inches when you're comparing them and seeing their differences. Also, I have no affiliation with any of these brands. I bought all of these with my own money, so no biases here. So for my number 3, I have Maison Asrar Muharib. And this might surprise some folks because I think this is being glazed like crazy online. And don't get me wrong, this is a solid take on that Naxos DNA. But the opening is a bit off for me with this one, and that's where the difference comes in. It comes off sharper than the OG as well as any of the other clones. Again, not a huge difference, and it's only one that you can pick up when you really test them side by side. And as it dries down, it does get much closer to the original. But in this game of inches, every single thing counts. And for me, that opening just sets it aside. Not going to go in depth with the notes here because they are all similar across all 3 of these. They're just remixed in different ways, but I will flash each one on the screen. At the end of the day, this still captures that aromatic opening, but I think it emphasizes that citrus more in the opening, and that's what gives it that sharper take. But it does still do a good job of balancing that fresh aromatics, the warm sweetness, and that deep tobacco base. The performance is still really good with this one, though a bit of a small step down from the OG. I would say longevity caps about 7.5 to 8 hours. Good initial projection, especially with that sharp opening, but then it does shift to a more moderate projector when compared to the OG. Also, I believe this is the most expensive clone on the list. Now, this one goes for around 50 bucks. Still really affordable, but a bit pricier compared to the rest on the list. If it wasn't my favorite, I would be okay with that price, but it certainly doesn't help in this scenario. Still a really excellent release. I can understand if this is your favorite, especially if you like that sharper, more attention-grabbing opening. And in the air, it's almost identical, but side by side for me, I just prefer the others on the list. Next up, I have to go with Nusuk Ateeq. And again, the notes are very similar to this, just remixed to give you a little bit of a different result. But I think this one is actually even more of a departure from the OG than the Maison Asrar was. But I still do prefer this one because in my opinion, if you can't get closest to the original, then go with the biggest twist. And this one is definitely the sweetest take on the DNA. It leans much more into that spiced honey more than any of the other fragrances on this list. Also, as it dries down, you get this noticeable woodiness with the cedar wood, which does give the base a little bit more depth and character. Look, I wouldn't call this a huge twist on the DNA, but it does make small but pleasant and impactful changes. It's Nusuk's way of standing slightly apart from the rest and giving us a bit of a different experience. And I think that's a smart move from Nusuk because they might not be able to compete with the rest otherwise. They are simply not as well known of a brand, and also they offer much more budget-friendly options. The performance is also the weakest of the bunch with this one. I'm getting longevity about 7-ish hours, good projection for the first hour or so. And like I said, they offer budget-friendly options, so that is something to keep in mind when you're making the decision. You can pick this one up for around $35. It's excellent value for money here. It's affordable without smelling cheap. If you're looking for a sweeter take on the DNA and you're looking to save a few bucks, this is a solid option. So finally, let's get to my favorite on the list, and it's none other than French Avenue's Fierte Luna. And I think the original Naxos is close to perfect, and this one gets the closest. I would say this is about 90 to 95% close. It captures that sweet, aromatic, spicy complexity of the original better than any of the other ones on the list. But where this one really shines is that tobacco note. They were able to capture that sweet yet wearable tobacco leaf closest to the original, hands down. And that sweet honey just comes off, in my opinion, just comes off a little bit more natural as well. Another feather in the cap with this one is that it is the best performing and it keeps up with the OG in testing. I'm getting 8 to 9 plus hours on skin, and it'll last forever on clothes. But one thing to keep in mind with this one, I have had this one the longest, so maturation could be a factor, but I haven't had it much longer than the other ones, maybe a couple of weeks. Now, be careful when looking for this one online because it is sold out almost everywhere. So the few places that do have it, the prices are way higher than usual. When it was readily available, you could easily find it for around $40, $45. That's how much I picked it up for. But right now the prices are crazy because only a few limited folks have it. But if you're able to, just be patient with this one because the prices should come down once the stock replenishes. And in my opinion, this one is the best one. It comes off high quality, it's the closest to OG, and it performs the best. Go with the French Avenue as long as the prices are not crazy. If you want a sweeter, more affordable take, go with Nusuk. And the Maison Asrar is closer to the original DNA when compared to the Nusuk. But I would only go with this one if you're in a rush to get this DNA and you want something closer to the original than the Nusuk, but you can't wait for that Fierte Luna price to come down. Now, I know there's a Rayhan version coming out, but it's not readily available anywhere at this moment. But when I do get my hands on it, I will compare it to the current King and see how it holds up. So there you have it, folks, my take on 3 of the best Naxos clones on the market, as well as the masterpiece that is the original. Let me know in the comments if you've tried any of these and which of these are your favorite. And please hit that like and subscribe button. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it does help the channel out tremendously. And as always, stay tuned for more affordable fragrance content. Until next time, I'm out.